Now for business updates across the globe, Rotus Udiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good to see you. Welcome back. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. All right, so quickly, Asia markets are across the board climbing on the weaker U.S. inflation data that came in yesterday afternoon. So Asian markets picking up, U.S. markets picking up, European markets picking up. Why? They're picking up because rather decelerating inflation suggests that central banks may ease up on their hiking, which of course impacts the valuations of technology stocks, makes the cost of borrowing a lot higher, and so on and so forth. So markets were optimistic on that. However, something that's not so optimistic is China. We continue to see weak data coming out of China. They just released their trade data for June for this month, and we saw China exports and imports both contracting. So June exports double-digit fall year on year for June. Imports falling at a lower clip at 6.8%, and you can see May and as well. So China continues to hobble as it comes out of those COVID lockdowns. However, within this data, though, they did show an increase in imports for fuel. That's fuel imports. So that was encouraging. It actually supported oil prices. Brent crude has hit $80 a barrel for the first time in 2 months. This has implications for the cost of your fuel at the pump, since the downstream sector in Nigeria is now deregulated. Nigerians now should pay attention to oil prices when they rise and they fall, particularly Brent. So what's been happening with oil prices, the Saudi, the OPEC cuts, the production cuts are seeping into supplies, impacting supplies, which is pushing up prices. Also, the promise of more stimulus from China, since we just talked about weaker China data, means that if China is stimulating its economy, hopefully that juices up aggregate demand and pushes up demand for oil, which should push up prices. Also, the weaker CPI data coming from the United States, all that is coming together and supporting oil prices. But again, if we are deregulated, as oil prices rise and fall, Nigerians will be paying more at the pump. So do pay attention to that. So this is what has been driving markets, the US CPI figures. So we saw it now decelerating now. It's a 2-year low now, 3% year on year, May 4%. The core inflation that strips out the more volatile items, 4.8%. That is what the Fed, Jerome Powell and his folks will be looking at. So I think there will still be, maybe there will be another rate hike at the next Fed meeting, but maybe it should be at a lower clip than what we've seen prior to that. Norway, let me get to Norway. Since we're talking about oil and gas. Norway has approved $18 billion worth of oil and gas projects. This has really annoyed environmentalists in Norway, but they're saying that you have to take advantage of what you have. And essentially, I think it was 2020 that the government of Norway approved a number of these licenses for exploration. And Norway, this is a nation of 5 million people. They have a $1 trillion sovereign wealth fund. They are now the biggest gas exporter to Europe since Russia cut its gas exports to try and punish Europe for the sanctions because of the invasion of Ukraine. So Norway, by the way, do you know that stockfish,
it's from Norway.
Nigeria's 90% of stockfish exports from Norway come to Nigeria. We are literally supporting because the temperature is so cold, they're able to store it outside, and that's when it gets really. So Norway's, when you talk about a diversified income, oil and gas, stockfish, and the best footballer in the world.
That fish.
Yeah.
And this was a civil war.
Exactly.
And it was first aid for people to be able to get things to eat.
Mm-hmm. So diversified. Even Haaland, isn't he the best footballer in the world? He's also from Norway as well. What else is going on? In the UK, we just got data, GDP data from the UK, contracting by 0.1% from the Office of National Statistics. Now, it was not as bad as was expected. It was a contraction of 0.3%. The pound, getting a little bit of a bump from those figures. Still, Jeremy Hunter, and that's the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Andrew Bailey, they're saying that rate hikes still have to happen. Wage growth needs to slow down in the UK, and so on and so forth. And then with Microsoft and Activision, yesterday in the middle of the afternoon, the Competition Markets Authority in the UK says that it looks like Microsoft and Activision want to restructure their deal. And they said if you do that, you will start from, this could to trigger another antitrust probe. So they're saying don't make any changes to this deal, because if you do, we'll start our review of your deal all over again from the beginning. Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, in addition to their cage match and their social media battles, they are both exploring artificial intelligence products. Musk is launching something called XAI, which is supposed to challenge ChatGPT. The Financial Times says that Meta is exploring a commercial AI product to boost their own system. So the AI race, semiconductor race, massive, massive, massive. And then we come to Africa, just Nigeria. The Debt Management Office releasing a putting out a press release yesterday saying that Nigeria has paid off, or rather redeemed, same thing, when you redeem a bond, you're paying it off, redeemed a $500 million bond that was due yesterday or the day before. It was issued back in, when was that bond issued? 2013. Yeah, 2013. So it's a good signal to the markets with respect to Nigeria being able to pay off, pay our obligations. I think we've redeemed about 1.8 billion now in the last 6 or 7 years, but still, debt is pretty high, and the fuel subsidy discussion flows right into debt, because if you're supporting that, you are impacting your revenues that you use to pay off your debt. And that's our updates around the globe.
So very well said, and I think Nigerians should brace up for impact since subsidy is gone now. $80 per barrel, I don't know what that'll translate to when you put in all the costs. I don't know how it's going to translate to in the pounds.
Landing cost, I mean.
So the landing cost.
And the exchange rates at which it's brought in.
And the exchange rate at which it got in. That's if they even get the exchange rate, the money itself, the forex, which is a problem. So we will suffer what we must, and we'll suffer that when the cost finally comes out.
In the short term?
As regards
in the short term?
No, it's not in the short term.
It's in the short term.
Because the truth has to be said. The truth has to be said. All what we have now is still the stock that NNPC has put in place. When the marketers start going to use their forex to buy, you will not be buying at this 492 you are buying in Lagos. Let's not deceive Nigerians.
True, I agree.
Let's tell them the truth.
But over time,
I yield the floor.
Over time.
So let's talk about Microsoft Activision, because we've been following the story with regards to competition and how the Federal Trade Commission is has applied for them to, or taken them to court to stop that particular takeover, because they feel that it would be unfair competition, and it would give Microsoft too much of an edge as a player in that industry, almost monopolizing that industry. Even though they've said that they would, there are some concessions they would make over the years, ensure that other players in that industry are still able to have their games and not have monopoly. But the Federal Trade Commission is fighting that, and just this morning, news report says that even though the court ruled in the favor of Microsoft, they're appealing that decision, so they're still fighting it. So the question I was going to ask was, this modification to the agreement, is it going to have an impact on that? Is it going to review how they would operate, and then would it then satisfy the FTC so that they allow Microsoft with that takeover?
Great question. It's important to note that this is on two different fronts. FTC is the Federal Trade Commission in the United States. The Competition and Markets Authority is in the UK. So the revision to the deal, that's for the UK. The UK is saying that you will have to start from scratch with a new review.
Well,
FTC is totally separate.
We discussed this yesterday.
Yeah.
And we made it clear that the ruling by Judge Jacqueline Clotty, is likely to result in reverberations with regard to antitrust issues in other countries. And we've seen the effect in the UK with the CMA coming forward with this and almost reversing itself, from the position it took in March. So everything will depend on if, the FTC goes ahead with the an appeal.
Yeah.
They have the deadline of Friday.
That's tomorrow.
And Microsoft has up till July 18 to consolidate the deal. That's about that. Very quickly, the Eurobond. Yes, Nigeria is going to, people have been celebrating. Yes, that it shows Nigeria is responsible.
Yes, sir.
As you said, and that this will give confidence to investors.
Yes.
But the truth of the matter is that our Eurobond indebtedness is $10.5 billion.
Yeah.
In 2024, we have to settle $1.1 billion. In 2024, we have to settle $1.5 billion. Yeah. So technically, it's not something to just jubilate about. $500 million. It is to worry about the challenge that waits ahead, because we can't issue more Eurobonds. It will be impossible to do so, and that puts further pressure on the Tinubu administration.
But Dr.
I was
Rupik,
going to ask
we spent $10 billion on
Yes.
subsidies last year. So now this is where the savings on not having to spend so much money on subsidies can now go to settle your debts. $10 billion on subsidies last year.
The same savings that they want to use to give us palliatives.
It's not easy, doctor.
Very quickly.
Okay.
That's why I talked about challenges for the Tinubu administration. Very quickly. The Association of Bureau de Change Operators.
Yes.
They have issued a statement. Their chairman is saying that they have to be involved in the administration of Forex.
Yes.
And that there must be legislation to back it up because they are key players in the business. And that the reason the Naira is yo-yoing against the dollar is because the policy about harmonization of foreign exchange does not take them along. What do you think? Quickly.
I think
we have
that-
less than a minute to
No,
go.
I'm happy he's not taking
they
it
should
along.
not be included in anything.
Anything
Once
at all.
supply is improved, they are worried that they're going to be the parallel market to be eliminated because
And that's what we want
the
to-
dollar has been liberalized.
No,
but supply is still
they
an issue.
say there are many players in that market.
True,
And
true.
you cannot reduce it to any
You
window.
see, black markets will always exist. It's just that their profits will fall with the liberalization of the exchange. We just need more supply, doctor. More supply. In short, look, short-term pain, long-term gain. Let's
Thank
just be
you very
patient.
much.
Those ones should not even be talking
Thank
in
you.
universities.
Doctor
Thank
is
you very
laughing.
much for
Thank you.
reviewing today's business stories with us.